all the living organisms in this world take some substance or the other as food. The food can be either solid or liquid. So, we all know that we get plants from all the living organisms in this world take some substance or the other as their food. Food can be either solid or liquid. We all know that we get food from plants and animals. Now, why the organisms are taking food? What is the need of food? Yes, the organisms take food to get energy. Then what do they do with this energy? That energy is used for their functions. So, when the organisms take food, that food gives energy and that energy is used for the functioning of the body. So, food is necessary for all the living organisms for their growth, metabolism, repair of the body and to maintain body temperature. So, what is the necessity of the food? Food is used for growth, metabolism, repair of the body and also to maintain the body temperature. So, that is the use of the food, right. So, various kinds of substances are taken as food by different organisms, like for example, single celled organism amoeba to multicellular organism like human being. Different organisms take different kinds of foods. Not only the organisms, even the cells of the body also require different substances as their food. Then what are cells? Yes, in your previous classes you all learned cell is the structural and functional unit of the living organisms, isn't it or not? And the cells contain cell organelles and these cell organelles have their own functions. So, to perform their functions, these cell organelles need energy and that energy they get from the food. So, that is why the organisms need food as well as the cells which make up the body also require energy that they get from the food. So, the mode of acquiring food varies from cell to cell and organism to organism, which means different cells need different kinds of foods and the way they take the food also differs. At the same time, the organisms take different kinds of foods and the mode of acquiring the food is also changing. So, the mode of acquiring nutrition varies from cell to cell and organism to organism. Now, why we get energy from food? That is nothing but food contains some chemical substances and those chemical substances are called nutrients. So, that is why when we take food, we get energy and that energy used for the functioning of the body. Then what are the nutrients present in the food? They are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals and vitamins. These are the food nutrients which help the organism to perform its function. Nothing but the food is helping the organism for its survival. So, this process of taking nutrients by the organism for its survival is called nutrition. What is nutrition? The process of taking nutrients by the organism for its survival is called nutrition. So, the topic what we are going to learn is nutrition food supplying system. Now, why we call nutrition as food supplying system, we learn in this lesson. Based on how the organisms obtain their nutrition, the nutrition is divided into two types. So, that is autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. So, based on what? Based on the way how organisms obtain their nutrition, they are divided into two types: autotrophic nutrition, heterotrophic nutrition. So, coming to the first one, autotrophic nutrition. Auto means self, troph means food. That means in this nutrition, the organisms synthesize their own food. That nutrition is called as autotrophic nutrition. Understood? Again I repeat, Autotrophic nutrition. Auto means self, troph means food. So the organisms synthesize their own food. Such nutrition is called autotrophic nutrition. Synthesizing means what? To prepare. So some organisms are capable of preparing their own food. Example for this kind of nutrition is plants, photosynthetic bacteria, etc. Okay, now we will see the types of autotrophic nutrition. So based on the energy source the organisms are using for preparing the food, they are divided into two types. That is photoautotrophic nutrition and chemoautotrophic nutrition. The autotrophic nutrition is divided into two types based on the energy source they are using to prepare their food. What are they? They are photoautotrophic nutrition and chemoautotrophic nutrition. So coming to the first one in autotrophic nutrition, that is photoautotrophic nutrition. The name itself indicates photo means light. Photo means what? Light. So some organisms are capable of using light as their energy source for synthesizing the food. Such kind of nutrition is called photoautotrophic nutrition. So what is photoautotrophic nutrition? In this nutrition, the organisms are capable of using sunlight as their energy source. What do they use? Sunlight as their energy source for synthesizing the food. Such nutrition is called photoautotrophic nutrition, and such organisms are called photoautotrophs. Then what are the examples for this? They are plants, purple sulfur bacteria, etc. Okay. Now coming to the second type, that is chemoautotrophic nutrition. Here also chemo means chemicals. So here the organisms are capable of using chemicals as the energy source for synthesizing their food. So the organisms capable of using chemicals as their energy source for synthesizing their food means for preparing their food. Such kind of nutrition is called chemoautotrophic nutrition, and such organisms are called chemoautotrophs. Now examples for chemoautotrophs, they are iron oxidizing bacteria, nitrogen fixing bacteria, sulfur oxidizing bacteria, etc. So based on the source of energy available, the autotrophs are divided into two types. They are photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. As already I told you, nutrition is of two types: autotrophic nutrition, heterotrophic nutrition. So we had seen autotrophic nutrition and its type. Now we are going to talk about heterotrophic nutrition. So hetero means others, troph means food. So the organisms which depend on others for their food are called heterotrophs, and such organisms are called heterotrophic organisms. Example, animals, human beings. Okay. So in this class we are going to study or learn more about autotrophic nutrition, whereas the heterotrophic nutrition we will talk in the later classes. Okay, let us study in detail about autotrophic nutrition. So we know that autotrophs are the organisms capable of using sunlight as their energy source to synthesize complex chemical compounds. To prepare these complex compounds, these organisms generally take minerals and water from the soil and gases from the air. Using such simple compounds, these autotrophs are able to synthesize the compounds like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, etc. So these are the compounds which are made by the plants, and these compounds are used by the animals including human beings as their food so that they get energy. We all know that most of the food what we eat we get from plants, isn't it or not? Though we may eat animals, those animals in turn dependent on plants. As I told you, the scientists are working on different life processes performed by plants, right? So then what is life process? Life process is an activity performed by the organism for its survival. So number of such life processes are going on in the living organisms. So one of the important process which makes the plants as universal food providers. What the plants are called? Universal food providers. So that life process is called photosynthesis. What is it called? Photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means to prepare. So here in this process, the plants containing green pigment called chlorophyll are building up complex organic molecules using simple inorganic ones from sunlight as their energy source. So this is how the photosynthesis goes on in the plants. What is photosynthesis? In the photosynthesis, plants are able to synthesize their food materials, that is nothing but the complex organic molecules using simple inorganic ones, and they are using sunlight as their energy source. That process is called as photosynthesis. Now look at the picture, children, how the plants are using the different materials for the photosynthesis process. See, here the water, minerals are taken from the soil, whereas energy they are getting from the sunlight, and the gases like carbon dioxide they are taking in, isn't it or not? And look at the leaves, they are containing chlorophyll pigment. So using all these materials like water, carbon dioxide, sunlight, chlorophyll, they are able to synthesize carbohydrates, and while doing this process they are producing oxygen gas. Look at that, they are producing oxygen gas. So this is how plants undergo photosynthesis process. Okay children, now you understood how the photosynthesis process occurs in plants. Okay, now photosynthesis actually is a complex process. Number of intermediary compounds are formed in this process. So several scientists had been working since past 200 years to propose the equation, formulate the equation for this photosynthesis. C.B. von Neil is a scientist, actually worked on photosynthesis. So in one of his experiments on the photosynthesis process, he used purple sulfur bacteria. For his experiment, what did he use? He used purple sulfur bacteria. And here, instead of using water, he used hydrogen sulfide. For photosynthesis experiment, he had used purple sulfur bacteria, and instead of using water, he used hydrogen sulfide. So in this experiment, he did not see the oxygen evolving, but he could see elemental sulfur has been evolving. So after observing this, see, this is the equation what he got after he conducted experiment with the purple sulfur bacteria, that is CO2 plus 2H2S, that is hydrogen sulfide, in the presence of light and chlorophyll has given rise to a carbohydrate, nothing but the sugar, water and elemental sulfur has evolved. So after observing this, Neil has come to a proposal that the photosynthesis in green plants might also be occurring in the similar way. So then in the year 1931, von Neil has proposed a simple equation for photosynthesis. What is that? That is carbon dioxide, CO2 plus 2H2O. Here the plants are using water, CO2 plus 2 water molecules, H2O, in the presence of light and chlorophyll are giving rise to sugars, that is carbohydrates, water and oxygen is evolved. So this is how the plants might be undergoing photosynthesis, and this is the equation for the photosynthesis which was given by C.B. von Neil in the year 1931. And according to Van Niel, for one molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of water and one molecule of oxygen is produced. According to Niel's opinion, what is it? That is, for one molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of water and one molecule of oxygen are produced. So, this is the equation given by Niel. But as I told you, photosynthesis is a complex process, and this simple equation which was given by Niel does not reflect the complexity of the photosynthesis process. So, still scientists have undergone number of experiments to understand this photosynthesis process, and now we have a modified and balanced equation for photosynthesis. So, this is the modified equation for photosynthesis. That is, see, look at the board children, 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O in the presence of light and chlorophyll, C6H12O6, that is the glucose form, and 6 H2O and 6 O2. So, this is the modified equation for photosynthesis, and this is the equation we are following now. Okay. So, we all know that plants are synthesizing carbohydrates by a process called photosynthesis, isn't it or not? So, while undergoing photosynthesis, plants generally prepare glucose. Plants generally prepare glucose, and this glucose is converted into starch. So, this starch actually is seen as the stored food material in the plants, especially in the leaves. Why? Because already I said in the leaves chlorophyll is present, and for photosynthesis chlorophyll is necessary, isn't it or not? So, that is why in the beginning, during photosynthesis process, glucose is formed, and this glucose is converted into starch. And in some plants, we can see cellulose as the stored food material. Now, if you observe glucose, starch and cellulose, all the three are carbohydrates, but in different forms. Glucose is the simple form of carbohydrate, starch is the complex form of carbohydrate, whereas cellulose is more complex form of carbohydrate. So, generally we see the starch as the stored food material in plants. Is it clear? Right. The plants not only synthesize carbohydrates, but they also synthesize proteins, lipids, etc. Now, look at the board children. If you observe the equation, now by looking at this equation, can you say the essential factors necessary for photosynthesis, or what are the materials required for photosynthesis? Look at this: CO2, carbon dioxide, water, sunlight or light you can say, and chlorophyll. These are the materials required for photosynthesis. So, what are the materials required for photosynthesis? They are carbon dioxide, water, light and chlorophyll. Now, looking at this equation, tell me what are the products produced during photosynthesis? Glucose, C6H12O6 is glucose form, later it converts into starch, water, oxygen. So, what are the products of photosynthesis? Glucose, water and oxygen are the products of photosynthesis. So, we are saying that carbohydrates are formed during the process of photosynthesis, and those carbohydrates generally we will see them in the leaves. And which form of carbohydrate is generally seen in plants? That is starch. Starch is the stored carbohydrate seen in plants. So, to understand this more clearly, let us talk about an experiment which shows that starch is present in leaves. So, let us discuss an experiment which is showing starch is present in leaves. Okay, now let us discuss the activity. So, what is the aim of our activity? The aim is to prove that starch is present in leaves. What is the aim? To prove that starch is present in leaves. So, for this activity, what are the apparatus required? So, for this activity, we require beaker, glass tube, Bunsen burner, tripod stand, asbestos gauge, water, methylated spirit, a fresh leaf, iodine solution, etc. Now I repeat, what are the apparatus required for this experiment? A beaker, a glass tube, Bunsen burner, tripod stand, asbestos gauge, water, methylated spirit, leaf, iodine solution, etc. So these apparatus to be made a setup. So in the procedure, what are we going to do? Now in this procedure, we are going to use all these apparatus, make the setup. Okay. Now look at this picture, children. Okay. So take a beaker here, fill it with water up to 3/4 of its level. Now take a glass tube, pour methylated spirit into the tube and insert a fresh green colored leaf into the tube. Now this glass tube with the leaf and methylated spirit has to be placed in the beaker with water. Now take this setup and place it on the asbestos gas which is present on the tripod stand. Now boil this methylated spirit under Bunsen burner. I repeat again, look at the picture, children. Take a beaker, pour water up to 3/4 of its level. Now take a glass tube, pour methylated spirit into that tube and insert a fresh green leaf into that. Now this glass tube to be placed in the water with beaker and that is placed on the tripod stand and now boil it. So after some time, what do you observe? We observe the color of the leaf is lost. The green color leaf actually has become pale. It has become colorless, right? So that is what we observed. So when the leaf becomes colorless, now slowly remove that leaf from the tube or the glass tube what we said and place it in a petri dish. After placing it in a petri dish, now add few drops of iodine. What is the chemical used here? Iodine. So to this colorless leaf which we had taken from the glass tube and placed in the petri plate, so add few drops of iodine. After adding iodine, now this leaf changes to blue-black color. What is the color change we had seen? Blue-black color. So this blue-black color indicates the presence of starch. Indicates the presence of starch. Is it clear, children? Okay, what is the activity we are discussing now? That is to prove the presence of starch in leaves. And the apparatus what we had used, we had seen, and we also had seen the setup, how we had set the apparatus, and after boiling we had seen, what did we observe? We had boiled the leaf in methylated spirit, and then what is our observation? We observe the leaf become pale, that is it lost its color, it has become colorless. Now after that what did we do? We had taken that leaf outside and tested with iodine solution. So when we had tested with iodine solution, what is the result? It changed into blue-black color. What is the color change we had seen? Blue-black color. So the blue-black color indicates the presence of starch. Indicates what? The presence of starch, right? So this is how we can prove that starch is present in leaf. Starch is a kind of carbohydrate. What is starch? It is a kind of carbohydrate. So in the equation what we had seen, during photosynthesis, what is prepared by the plants? Carbohydrates are prepared by the plants. And in which form it is stored, I said? It is stored in starch form. So by this activity, we proved that starch is present in leaves. Is it clear, children? Now let us discuss about the factors essential for photosynthesis. So do you all remember the equation? Already I told you what are the materials or factors necessary for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide, water, sunlight and chlorophyll. Isn't it or not? Then what are the products of photosynthesis? That is glucose, water and oxygen are the products of photosynthesis. So now we are going to discuss about the factors essential or necessary for photosynthesis. So first we will take water. So water is essential for photosynthesis, that we are going to talk now. So the scientist called von Helmont actually has conducted experiment to know about photosynthesis. So for his experiment, he had taken a willow plant. Actually this willow plant grows into a huge bigger tree. So before starting his experiment, he had taken that potted plant and separated the soil from the pot. Well, this Helmont has taken the weight of the soil and weight of the plant separately, and that he noted as the initial weights of soil and the plant. Now again he had placed the plant as usual in the pot and he had kept it aside. Now what did he do? He regularly poured water to that plants. For 5 years he continued the same way. He used to pour water regularly to the plant. So after 5 years, he has now separated the soil from the pot, taken the weight of the pot, and also he had taken weight of the plant. So this he had noted as final readings. So 5 years earlier, he has taken the weight of the soil and the plant weight, that he has noted as initial reading, and now after 5 years, he had taken the weight of the soil as well as weight of the plant, and he noted them as the final readings. And surprisingly, he could see some changes in these readings. Okay, so when he had observed the initial readings as well as the final readings, he felt a change. You see, when he observed, there is much increase in the weight of the plant body, whereas the weight of the soil remained almost same. So what reading he has taken in the initial time, that is before 5 years, after 5 years also the weight of the soil remained the same, whereas the weight of the plant has changed a lot. Initially the plant weight was very less, whereas after 5 years the weight of the plant is very much increased. Understood? So from this Helmont has come to a conclusion. So Helmont has concluded that water is essential for the growth and development of the plant. That is, water is necessary for photosynthesis, which is helping for the growth and development of the plant. So this is how Helmont has conducted the experiment on willow plant and said that water is essential for photosynthesis. So this is one of the factors which is very important for photosynthesis. Is it clear, children, how Helmont has conducted the experiment and how he had observed the increase in the body mass of the plant, and by this he proved that water is essential for photosynthesis. Now let us discuss another factor which is essential for photosynthesis. Okay, children. Now let us evaluate today's content, right? Look at the screen. What is nutrition? What are the nutrients present in food? Why food is necessary for all living organisms? How many types of nutrition are there? What are they? What is autotrophic nutrition? Give examples. What is heterotrophic nutrition? Give examples. Why plants are called universal food providers? Define photosynthesis. What are the raw materials required for photosynthesis? What are the products of photosynthesis? Give the equation given by C.B. Van Neel for photosynthesis. Write the modified and balanced equation for photosynthesis. What are the factors essential for photosynthesis? What are the products of photosynthesis? Name the scientist who said that water is essential for plant growth and development. Thank you.